Everyone ignored me, not because I was a troublemaker, not because I failed every class, but because nobody believed I would ever become successful. People laughed at my dreams. They doubted my abilities, and some didn't even remember my name. But a few years later, those same people would wish they had never underestimated me. My name is Tyler, and I am 21 years old. This is my story. I grew up in a small town in America, where everybody seemed to know each other. Some kids were popular, some were talented, and some came from families that had money and connections. I wasn't any of those things. I was the quiet kid sitting in the back of the classroom. Most days, nobody noticed me. Teachers rarely called on me. Classmates rarely talked to me. It felt like I was invisible. At home, things weren't much easier. My parents worked long hours just to pay the bills. Money was always tight. I remember hearing them talk late at night about expenses they couldn't afford. Even though they tried to hide their worries, I could see the stress on their faces. Watching them struggle broke my heart. I wanted to help them. I wanted to change our situation. But I was just a teenager with no money, no experience, and no idea where to start. As the years passed, I noticed something painful. People expected success from everyone except me. Whenever teachers talked about bright futures, they mentioned other students, never me. Whenever relatives discussed successful careers, they talked about other kids, never me. Nobody believed I had potential. Eventually, I started believing it too, and that was the biggest mistake of my life. One afternoon, something happened that would change everything. I tell you what changed my life. You need to understand how difficult things were for my family. Growing up, money was always a problem. Every month felt like a challenge. My father worked long hours trying to support us. My mother did everything she could to stretch every dollar. But no matter how hard they worked, it never seemed to be enough. There were times when we had to postpone buying things we actually needed. There were times when my parents pretended everything was fine, even when it wasn't. As a teenager, I could see the pressure they were carrying. The stress, the exhaustion, the constant worry. And it hurt me. I wanted to help them. I wanted to make their lives easier, but I didn't know how. One day after school, I overheard a conversation between my parents. They were talking about bills. The situation was worse than I thought. For the first time, I realized how serious our problems really were. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about our future. I kept asking myself the same question. What if nothing ever changes? The thought terrified me. I didn't want my family to spend the rest of their lives struggling. I wanted more, not just for myself, for them. That's when I made a promise nobody else knew about. I promised myself that one day, somehow, I would change our situation. I didn't know when, I didn't know how, but I refused to accept that this was all life had to offer. Little did I know, the journey ahead would be much harder than I imagined, and soon I would face rejection after rejection after rejection after making that promise to myself. I thought things would start getting better. I was wrong. In fact, life became even harder. I started applying for part-time jobs after school. I wanted to earn money. I wanted to help my family. And I wanted to prove that I was capable of more than people thought. So I filled out applications, again and again and again. But the answers were always the same. We're sorry, but we've decided to move forward with another candidate. Every rejection hurt. At first, I told myself not to take it personally. But after the 10th rejection, then the 20th, it became impossible not to. I started wondering if something was wrong with me. Maybe I wasn't smart enough. Maybe I wasn't talented enough. Maybe everyone else was right. While my friends were finding opportunities and moving forward, I felt stuck. It seemed like no matter how hard I tried, nothing worked. One afternoon, I received another rejection email. I stared at the screen for several minutes. Then I closed my laptop and sat in silence. For the first time in my life, I felt completely defeated. All the confidence I had built disappeared. All the hope I had been holding on to started fading away. That evening, I went for a walk alone. The streets were quiet. The sun was setting. And for the first time, I seriously thought about giving up on my dreams. Maybe success wasn't meant for people like me. Maybe some people were simply destined to struggle forever. The thought stayed in my mind for days. And slowly, I began believing it. Little did I know, I was about to reach the lowest point of my entire life, a moment that would either break me forever or force me to become stronger than I had ever been before. For weeks, I tried to stay positive. I told myself things would get better. I told myself to keep going, but deep down, I was exhausted. Every rejection felt heavier than the last. Every disappointment felt harder to handle. And eventually, I reached a point where I couldn't pretend anymore. One night, I sat alone in my room. The lights were off. The house was quiet. And for the first time in years, I felt completely lost. I looked around at everything in my life. The struggles, the failures, the missed opportunities. And I wondered if all my effort had been for nothing. I remembered every person who doubted me, every person who said I would never succeed, every person who believed I wasn't good enough. The painful part was that I had started believing them. I no longer saw a successful future. I only saw obstacles. For several days, I stopped caring about my goals. I stopped making plans. I stopped believing things could change. Then one evening, something happened. I walked into the kitchen and saw my father sitting alone at the table. He looked exhausted, older than I had ever seen him before. For a moment, he didn't notice me standing there. He was staring at a pile of bills, worried, stressed, tired. And suddenly, I realized something. If I gave up now, nothing would ever change. Not for me, not for my family, not for anyone. That moment hit me harder than any rejection ever had. I went back to my room and stayed awake most of the night thinking about my future, about my family, about the person I wanted to become. And before the sun came up, I made a decision that would change the direction of my life forever. I didn't know it yet, but that night was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new chapter. That night, I made a choice. I could either spend the rest of my life feeling sorry for myself, or I could fight for the future I wanted. The next morning, I woke up with a different mindset. I stopped focusing on what I didn't have and started focusing on what I could control. I began learning new skills. I worked harder than ever before, and little by little, I started rebuilding my confidence. For the first time in months, I felt hope. I didn't know where the journey would lead, but I knew one thing. I wasn't giving up anymore. The changes didn't happen overnight. Success didn't suddenly appear, but every day I improved a little. I studied more, I worked harder, and I became more disciplined. Weeks turned into months. Then something unexpected happened. People started noticing my effort. Small opportunities began appearing. Nothing huge, but enough to show me that progress was possible. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally moving forward. And soon, an opportunity would arrive that could change everything. One day, I received a phone call. At first, I thought it was another rejection, but this time was different. Someone wanted to give me a chance. It wasn't a huge opportunity, but it was enough. Enough to prove that my hard work was finally paying off. For the first time, I felt excited about the future, and I knew this was only the beginning. I worked harder than ever before. I arrived early. I stayed late, and I gave everything I had. Slowly, people began respecting me. The same people who once ignored me started noticing my progress. My confidence grew stronger every day, and with every small success, my dreams felt closer. Months passed. My life looked completely different. New opportunities appeared. My income improved, and for the first time, I was able to help my family financially. Seeing my parents smile without worrying about money meant everything to me. That moment made every struggle worth it. Today, when I look back, I hardly recognize the person I used to be. The boy who doubted himself. The boy who felt invisible. The boy who almost gave up. If I learned one thing, it's this. Success doesn't belong to the smartest person. Success belongs to the person who refuses to quit. My name is Tyler. I was the boy everyone ignored. But I never stopped believing in myself, and that changed everything.